Okay, we'll start on page 1. Set our motivation for tonight. We begin by acknowledging the Whadjuk people, traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples everywhere. Sangye churun sangye chonam la chanchu patu dabni kyapsuchi dagi chenyen gi pe sonam ki trola panchi sangye tropashu sangye churun sangye chonam la chanchu patu dabni kyapsuchi dagi chenyen gi pe sonam ki Trola panchi sangye tropasho sangye churun soye chunam la janshu badu dadni kyapsuchi dagi chenyen gipe sonam ki trola panchi sangye tropasho. Setting a most profound Mahayana motivation for engaging in listening, reflecting, contemplating, and these precious teachings of especially of the Tibetan lineage, and in our case, the Gelugpa lineage, are the preliminary practices of Nyondros, which is putting our learning into practice and accumulating vast amounts of merit and purifying vast amounts of negative karma that we've accumulated since beginning this time and have not yet purified. Taking advantage of this rare, precious opportunity. Before we go any further, Tom, would you mind getting the silver prayer books, one for each of us? Thank you. So we're looking at tonight purification through mantra recitation and visualization. So this is one of aspect of Nyondro that we have many purification practices. Another one that we most famously do is the prostrations to the 35 Buddhas. So we'll talk about that subsequently.
Do you need one?
I do. On account of I'm not clairvoyant. I mean, I do have my own different copy, but if I want to refer to pages, and this is a good one to do. So I was mentioning the 35 Buddhas, which we'll look at subsequently, and these two in particular, Lama Zopa Rinpoche singled out. This one that we're looking at tonight, Vajrasattva, which you have a familiarity with already. So Vajrasattva and the Confession to 35 Buddhas, Rinpoche singled out as the ones, the Nyondro to do for discovering Buddhism, to complete discovering Buddhism, to do the 100,000 of each of these. So clearly it's a very profound and amazing practice, as we all know. And I thought synchronicity, well, I sort of engineered it that way, the fact that we're having Vajrasattva practice here on Saturday, just to inspire, perhaps. Okay, so we say that this is not a complete practice, both this and the Confession to the 35 Buddhas. And they're both presented to us in a way to make sure they're a complete practice incorporating the four opponent powers. So one way, as it, in terms of purification, the power of the remedy. So the power of the remedy could be whatever practice that we do as the remedy, as the actual practice. But here it is through recitation of mantras, in relation to a particular deity. So there's also we mentioned in passing something like Samaya Vajra, which is a practice also that is done particularly in relation to purifying harm done in relation to the guru, to the spiritual teacher, in which we can include the Buddha, of course. We have the prayer, may I not arise heresy for even a second in relation to the actions of the glorious guru, so that, and may I see every action done as pure. So having to train our mind like that is actually training our own mind, just like in this Vajrasattva practice, it's training our own mind to have that pure aspect ourselves, which, is then makes it a tantric practice. So in terms of Vajrasattva, it's a Kriya Tantra practice. So might come back to that, but otherwise I'm going to lose these points if I don't follow this. So Vajrasattva is, or Dorje Sempa is, highly valued. It's a common practice in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, to purify past negative karma, acknowledging what we can remember, and particularly it's good to remember those things that are current, or that we have the affliction I have a particular tendency towards. Is it jealousy? Is it pride? Is it anger? What is it? So that we have these particular ones that we maybe struggle with on a day-to-day basis. Self-doubt is one. Low self-esteem, although that's not on the traditional list, but we might as well say, as Lama Yeshe said, the most disgusting form of laziness, will be the laziness of I can't, was what he called the most disgusting form of laziness. Because if I say I can't, I won't. So then we don't start, right? So you can see how serious that is. Anyway, so we have these, the various steps are set out in the sadhana practice, which is like the one we have here, a short Vajrasattva meditation. So in our books, that starts on page 202, the actual practice, just to have it there for reference point. So sadhana means a method to accomplish our aims, our goals. So we only really need one method, in a way, isn't it, to accomplish our goals of Buddhahood. And this practice of Vajrasattva incorporates so many different elements. It's a really complete whole practice, right? So this short one that we have here, short Vajrasattva practice, has been compiled or composed by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and explicitly lays out the four opponent powers. And just in terms of what are we purifying, so the four opponent powers, the one of regret for the negative actions I've done and not wishing to repeat them, and wanting to out of my body as swiftly as possible, just like I'd want to poison out of my body, not thinking who gave it to me or why they gave it to me, you just want it out, that sort of urgency of regret. They say the stronger the regret, the greater the purification. So in terms of these four results of karma, so we have these four results, and that each one of these purifies one of those results. So regret purifies experiences similar to the cause. Sort of, makes sense. If I don't nip it in the bud, if I don't recognize this is harmful, I keep doing, and so I keep creating the habit to have the experiences similar to what caused that. So if I go around killing, I'll have the experience of being killed, having a short life, having chronic illness, etc., etc. Future lives, we don't know when. Reliance, or in ours it says the power of dependence. So there's two aspects here. And I love the way it's laid out in this book, because on one side you've got the power of dependence, exactly opposite you've got the power of dependence, taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. However, when we say that refuge and bodhicitta, so page 202, when we say that refuge and bodhicitta prayer, we're actually doing both, because it is the first two lines are refuge and the second two lines are bodhicitta. But the generating bodhicitta as an extra is in relation to sentient beings. I'm not doing this for myself alone. So we're explicitly thinking of all the beings in all the realms of existent, or the negative, experiences we know about that they have. We won't necessarily know their karma. So this reliance, going for refuge and bodhicitta, purifies the environmental result. So here you could say we are experiencing a very good environmental karma, right? It's not summer yet, so wait till summer and I'll revise that. It's not hot yet, let alone extremely hot yet. Then we'll be purifying the hot hours. But at the moment, it's nice and moderate. And so we could say, at the moment, I'm experiencing that good result, but watch out what I do in relation to other sentient beings. So the more I visualize the practice and encompassing all other sentient beings and establishing the field of merit and having an elaborate visualization, I can transform this whole place into a pure one, so that I can create for myself a very different environmental result. And then the remedy, whatever practice we do, in this case Vajrasattva, purifies our throwing karma, our rebirth, so that the karma that ripens at the time of our death. This is why it's so important, the death time. And, not just the death time, not just waiting till what we think is going to be our death time, we'll be dead before then, but to familiarize also. It doesn't explicitly, in this one, in highest yoga tantra, it does go through the stages of dissolution, but here we're talking about action tantra, kriya tantra. So in kriya tantra, the emphasis is more on externals. So for example, cleanliness is one of that. We're talking about purification, but we're also applying that externally as well. So when I was at Chenrezig Institute and we had the 3-month Vajrasattva retreat, so the main Gompa is upstairs, and below on one side's the Tara Gompa, which is where we were. Before they had aircon, and we started at Losar, it was very hot, very hot. We did have some fans, those pedestal fans, but it was still very hot. Now they have aircon. I rejoice. On the other side was a library. And so before the retreat, of course, you have people apply, and there's an extensive application form, and then I would interview everybody. And then I said, okay, we're getting here on this, we're starting on this day, and it was 5 days before the start of the 3-month retreat. It's just like, why do we have to get here 5 days before? Because that's when the practice starts. Yes, you settle in, but the other part of it is we were scrubbing. We were scrubbing that Gompa outside and inside, and that took a few days, right? Up in the eaves of the roof, outside, and, there was a lot. I don't think it had been scrubbed for a very long time. And setting up the altar and making it beautiful, and then, because you're doing a 3-month retreat, I thought that, and because it was Vajrasattva, and Vajrasattva is white, everything was a white theme as far as I was concerned. So all the offerings were white, and there was a lot of light. And then Geshe Zopa came in, and he said, got to add more light. So now there was zing, zing, zing light. And going on in the time of the retreat was really helpful to actually feel that uplift when you feel like you're in the churn cycle of the washing machine and you're getting all, how many more mantras do I have to do? Not even halfway through yet. It's 3 months. It's a long time. So anyway, so that was really, really great. And so then the library volunteers did a compare and contrast, and they realised the library was looking shabby. So they did a spring clean, even though it wasn't spring, it was, what is it? Summer. The hot part of summer, February. Yeah. Anyway, so good. It inspired them. So the remedy, and then restraint, refraining from, at the end of the practice where we say, those things I can easily abstain from, I can easily let go of, I will immediately. Of course, by now, those things that we could easily let go of, we probably have. So what we're really working on, the things that are difficult, and it's saying, even if you say for 1 second, even if you say, till the end of this practice or whatever, you're still chipping away at those habits of the mind, those afflictions and so forth. So it's good to set a goal, a definitive goal. Okay, these ones that I'm working on, the jealousy or pride or anger or whatever I'm working on. And that purifies actions similarly to court, because I've decided to restrain myself from engaging in those actions again, you see. So just, I thought that might be of interest to know each element. Otherwise we say, oh, the 4 opponent powers have to be there. Why? Lama Yeshua said, as soon as he started teaching Westerners, he very quickly caught on to the difference between, like, you tell a Tibetan, go and do a 3-month Vajrasattva retreat, and they just do it, or, your 100,000 or whatever. And then he encountered Westerners. So why? So everything's why. Explain to me. So he couldn't just say do it, and they do out of, gratitude that you've given them this instruction and devotion and so forth. They want to know why. Even if you're Lama Yeshe, they want to know. So we're different, right? So when we're engaging in this practice, visualization and recitation, so they're 2 different things, but they also combine. Because just to note, as conversation we were having earlier today, we said, oh, I can't visualize Vajrasattva, I can't visualize. And as Lama Yeshe said, visualize pizza, no problem. Right? No problem. Okay. We can all visualize. Just saying.
I don't know, this fits in with what you've written or doing. I'm wondering if I can just insert from the left field. If you're not able to do a 3-monthly retreat and you do feel you have an accumulation of bad karma from the past.
Oh, don't worry, we all have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The question is, so you're not doing a 3-monthly retreat.
No.
But you have the capacity to reflect on things over time.
Yes.
Is it?
Okay. I think I can answer that. In terms of Vajrasattva.
So whether, from a particular part of childhood or early adulthood, there may be things that you feel as though still stick with you haven't worked through it in some way.
Yeah.
Is there a particular process where you don't have the capacity to do the 3-monthly retreat? If you're doing Vajrasattva over time,
yeah,
is it possible just to take a particular bad karma or a transgression of the past?
Oh, it'll change over time. But yes, you can.
So you can segment it without necessarily hanging on to it in any way, but
just wanting to purify what we have done in terms of the afflictions in our mind.
And I realise that in a strictest sense, we should be thinking about previous lifetimes as well.
Good luck thinking, I can't remember most of this life, let alone previous lives. So I just add, and everything I've ever done, which is everything. We've been and done everything. So you just add all that in. And everything I've ever done to harm any being, which includes ourselves, since beginningless time. It sort of covers all. But what we do need to have is something specific, that we know what we're working on, because how do we ever gauge what progress we're making if we say, oh, we don't know, oh, I'm not as reactive, I'm not holding on as much or so forth. If we don't know that. So we have to make it real, not just some, oh, that felt good, it must be
pure.
Oh,
no, I can remember specific events or
actions
of the past.
So there is an answer to that, yes. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche, when he would give, particularly in the more recent times, at the end of the Kopan 1-month retreat, he'd generally give the Vajrasattva empowerment. And as a result, there would be the opportunity. I think it was only 1 month, or they might have done 3 months retreat. Oh, I think it was 3 months straight away afterwards. You know, some people had taken off that year, and so they just did all these one retreat after the other, which is brilliant if you can do that. So they did that. However, the alternate instruction was, if you can't do that, do the long sadhana. So it's in a different book. This is a short. Do the long sadhana at least once a day for a year.
Oh.
1 year. So, but you'd have to, why I say at least once or at least for a year, is that you have to be doing your accumulation of mantras. So say I'm doing it like that. The minimum number that you set of mantras, the very first session, like generally, like when we had the 3-month Vajrasattva retreat, it starts off with your, you have an evening like this, very short session, but it's all about consecrating the seed, setting up your, I mean, the space is already set up, but there's a few ritual things to do. You do a very short few recitations of the mantra, just a few, and that becomes your minimum for any subsequent session. And I say that because you don't want it to be too many. Because say I do 100 in that first session, then every morning, consequently, I've got to do at least 100. And you may not have that capacity, right? And so say you do 5 or 7 or 21, which is a daily thing anyway, daily commitment. So you set that at the first session and you maintain that until you've reached your 100,000, which will be, I haven't calculated by 365 how many years that will take you.
So just to clarify, you've got the sadhana or the long mantra?
Well, they're both. So you have the sadhana, which is in here. This is the preliminary practice of Vajrasattva. So it has some little differences, but it's longer. It includes the blessing of the offerings and a few other things. So it's longer than this one. So if you're doing a 3-month retreat, you do this one still once a day, and then you could do the short one subsequently. When we did the 3-month Vajrasattva retreat, I think we did, we did the long one once a day and then had a couple. Generally you have 4 sessions when you're doing in a retreat setting. And then the other times we do the short one, which allowed you to accumulate more mantras. And then we also did Guru Yoga, Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, in which we incorporated, as it is laid out, which is also in here, it's laid out to incorporate Vajrasattva as well. So we incorporated that in there. And then once a week we did Haruka Vajrasattva Sog, which incorporated the mantras.
Which is a slightly bigger book, the Coming
Vajrasattva
one.
No,
the other one.
The Coming Vajrasattva is it has got the practice from Lama Yeshe, which is the one, but it's also got commentary. So anyway, that's laid out here, and it's done as Haruka Vajrasattva. And if, like for example, it just so happened that everyone during that retreat at Chenrezig had Haruka empowerment, so that we could do that. But that's okay. You don't, and there's, if possible to do Haruka, if people have the empowerment, then it's more powerful. So it's more powerful. Well, it is a higher level of Tantra, it's yoga Tantra. So then, because we all had that, we also did 6 sessions and everything else within our sessions, so that people weren't stressing about everything else they had to do outside the sessions. Just to let you know. So yes, okay.
The Gompa at the Great, the Stupa and Bendigo.
Yes, Great Stupa, yeah.
Their particular version of Vajrasattva has got all these extra bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Like extra prayers and things.
Yeah, that may be this one. There's 3 or 4 different versions in here, which is the one we use for the retreat, for a retreat, or for an accumulation of Vajrasattva.
And Jim Mullins in one of his books has got an extra Vajrasattva with a whole lot of extra bits and pieces of prayers.
Oh, there's many different versions of
I think I
Vajrasattva.
was talking
Many.
with you.
Yeah, there's many.
It's possible to find a whole
There's-
range.
Oh, yeah, there's many.
And then the Chökyi and
Yes, have many as well. Yeah, and Sakya. So the Sakya, I can't remember how they pronounce the whole mantra, but it's a different, slightly different as well. So yeah, there are many. Okay. So in terms of the practice, so using words as a support for meditation, because we recite a whole bunch of stuff here. And, some people might have the idea that meditation is sitting silently, no words attached, non-conceptual, non-discursive. Of course, there is an aspect of that in terms of calm abiding, but in Tantra, in the sadhanas, there's many descriptions. As we know, there's a description, we have a description of Vajrasattva, and there's many descriptions of Vajrasattva as well. So there are two main aspects of Vajrasattva, and the one, or main representations. Here's our Vajrasattva. Up here, we have the single Vajrasattva. So, and however, the one that Lama Yeshe introduced to our organisation was Vajrasattva with Wisdom Mother. So if you look at page 199, it's got the two together. And the visualization on 203 has them both there too. Even if one doesn't have the tantric empowerment, one has permission to visualize like this, because this is the lineage of FPMT as introduced by Lama Yeshe. So he was a bit unique in many ways, but that's our lineage. There's always many questions about that, because it's introduced in Discovering Buddhism. What are we doing with Father, Mother? And I remember when I was first asked to see, Chenrezig Institute also has at the end of the year a 5-day Vajrasattva retreat every year since I don't know when, as a New Year thing, preparation for the New Year. And so when I was first asked to do that, they were using the single Vajrasattva, which has a function in terms of not making it too difficult for people to visualize every which what. However, if this is the one that we have for our tradition. So it's like, from my point of view, and I guess FPMT point of view, it's sticking with our lineage. And of course, if one has the empowerment, then you can visualize yourself arising as the deity, and it's a different aspects. Yeah.
In the Vajrasattva Gompa Tushita,
yeah,
they actually have a statue.
Yes, they do. They do. It's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah.
And they were actually covering that up for some courses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where they thought there were many people who weren't.
That's right. That's why we have some of the tankas in the protector room, so that, and that's why they indeed, have covers anyway. They can all be covered up, but particularly the tantric ones, we tend to cover up for people who don't have the empowerments. Yeah. Okay, so we use words, we use all of this. So in terms of tantric sadhanas, detailed descriptions. So we rely heavily on the words, which are both the instructions and the descriptions of the visualization. So if we know the whole, we've done it so long that we know how it all runs, and we go, okay, first of all, I do refuge, then I do, You don't have to exactly do all the words, particularly with the visualization. If you have an established visualization, you don't need to read the whole visualization. However, when we do here as a group practice, we do read all those aspects, right? And yeah, so we do read it all and do our best to establish the visualization, or as we were talking about earlier, you know, that we could take an aspect of the visualization and really focus on that particular aspect. Okay, so so that's to guide us in our meditative experiences. And for example, when we're doing the 3-month Vajrasattva retreat, after a certain amount of time, different people would lead so that others wouldn't have to be reciting the visualization parts and could just focus more on the visualization. Okay, attitudes differ among teachers, with some insisting that you read every single word. Okay. I would say that's when we're a beginner. Skip, while others are okay with you skipping if you know how to visualize, so what I just said. Regardless, we need to figure out how can we relate the words in a beneficial way, allowing them to deepen our practice, to allow us to go deeper in our practice. So that, like for the power of regret, the first thing that we're asked to do is call to mind those negative actions, body, speech, and mind, so that when we do read, we're adding on to that almost every action we do since the beginning of time, etc. But we've got something that we're already focusing on in our heart. Yes. So then traditionally it is memorized. So a lot of the practices are memorized, or have been memorized. That's been the tradition coming from Tibet and then to the monasteries and so forth. And having done Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, it was a couple of weeks the first time round, and I was leading it, and Geshe Sultan was a participant. And then we were accumulating the number of mantras to send to Ling Rinpoche, because Ling Rinpoche was the one who had bestowed the empowerment and given us a commitment. So it was to sort of like offer that back. And because the Tibetans know this all, and particularly when it's their main practice, because, you know, when I'd be leading, you know, after a while, because she's going to say, "You're talking too much." I'm just like, "No, I'm just writing what's there." Just, it's what's there. But the Tibetan style, like, he accumulated a vastly greater number of mantras than the rest of us. Right? So, it's, you know, he was so familiar with the practice, he didn't, and he didn't need to listen to the English. He could just go off and do his visualization recitation.
The interesting part of watching a Geshe do the Heart Sutra in Tibetan and get to the end before those of us who are doing it in English. Also,
Tibetan's more concise than English.
Yep.
And you'll notice that with a lot of the prayers, you know. Like something like the Lamrim prayer and the Guru Puja, that Lama Zopa Rinpoche always says to do in English, for us to do in English. But then when you've got combined with Tibetan Lamas, and they've finished long ago, and we're still going, it's okay. It is what it is. I think except for Geshe. You can see him. Anyway, this Geshe who would lead in Tibetan the Guru Puja, it would take 3 hours, and I was asked to lead at the same time in English. So hard when it's like, when it's fast, you know to go fast, but when it's slow, I was just like, which bit do I do now? And, you know, I never got the timing right. It's all right. We were all there. A lot of people used to turn up, so I guess they liked it that way. So, you know, it was traditionally like that. And given that all these practices have come out of an oral tradition passed down anyway, but these days, and particularly in our culture, we don't memorize because it's sort of like, oh, that's rote learning. But another way I think about it, if I memorize prayers, practices, and so forth. It's on my mental continuum. I don't have to worry about whether I've got a device, whether it's battery's gone flat, whether I've got the practice with me, etc., etc. If we've learned those. I mean, I've only learned a few. I'm not saying I've learned a lot, but and you think that's what goes with us on our mental continuum. And so reading the text is a much greater hurdle for entering into deeper experiences. And I think we only really get that when we do something in a retreat. I mean, that's the purpose of doing in retreat, is to be able to then have the time. I'm not saying everyone has 3 months, but whatever we have to do in retreat, if it's the 5 days, like, as I said, Chen Resig has been doing it every year at the end of the year for decades. And now, and also Kunsan Yeshu in the Blue Mountains, they also do a monthly one as well, after like we do. And then, yeah, they've established this tradition now. So there's a few centres who have, which at least allows you to deepen the practice a bit. You know, the one at Kunsan Yeshu is not residential because they don't have a residence. At Chen Resig it is, so it's like you can immerse yourself.
In the book,
yes,
that one there,
yes, in
there's
this book.
advice on how to do a solitary one.
Well, yes, yes,
Without going anywhere.
yes, it's all there.
Have you ever known anybody to ever do that?
What people have done, yeah, a lot of people do solitary ones, mostly Tibetans. And this is the thing, Lama Yeshe said, for Westerners, it's better we do as group practice because we're more likely to complete, you know, to achieve it. It's something about we need that group experience, that group commitment or whatever. Whereas Tibetans, they just do. They just do. Many people do. Yeah. So yes, it's doable, it's possible. So when we, for example, had the 3-month retreat, and I think Tashida does the same thing, is that you could do 1 month or 3 months. And 1 month had to be the first month. Because what happens is you start in a retreat and it's like, you know, everything's like a barley grain. So the first month, your first few days, you're getting into the practice. And then after a few days, you take precepts, and you took precepts the whole time. And then after the first, so we would have silence, which happens at a lot of retreats from the end of the evening session up until the end of lunch. Right? And we had our own separate quarters and timing for lunch because we were on precepts. Actually, the whole of CI was on precepts at that point, or at least, no, they weren't on precepts, but they had precepts and food the whole time. The next day, they brought garlic and onions back. It was just, the food was lovely. You didn't have to have onions and garlic. But anyway, I wasn't the chef. And a lot of people other people liked it because they didn't have onions and garlic. So there you go. In any case, you know, you're totally separate. In the second month, 24/7 silence. And when you're doing your practice, you're doing your practice together, but silence the rest of the time. And so you sort of ease in and ease out with a lot of the different things. Okay, so that's generally what happens in a group retreat setting. So yeah, reading it from memory. Here it says, and I've never heard of anyone doing this. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, listening to a recording while engaging in the visualization. So we could see if that's effective or not. Certainly with the Confession to the 35 Buddhas, that happens a lot, where it's sort of playing it. But then people don't learn it. And also, as Lama Zopa says, then the recording gets the merit, not you. Because we're having, when we do the 35 Buddhas, we're physically prostrating, we're verbally reciting, and mentally we're visualizing. So we're doing, you know, body, speech, and mind. So, yeah. All right. So it's about the words. And then in terms of visualization, so imagine something that allows it to come to life. For example, if Vajrasattva is perfect, imagine, just white light, powerful white light above the crown of your head. We can all visualize that. We can't visualize the whole aspect of Vajrasattva. To really, invoke our imagination and feel that experience. Now, I've got this other book, which is a Kagyu one, which is why I don't generally recommend people have it, but it has the pictures, it's got lovely pictures. So here, and you can pass it around, you have the meditator with the white lotus and the syllable Hum on the white lotus. So it's not huge, but I mean, these are beautiful, beautiful illustrations. And that transforms into Vajrasattva. I'll pass it around.
So it's not Nyingma?
No.
It's Kagyu.
I think it's Kagyu. I don't know. Actually,
I couldn't work out where I came from when I thought my copy.
I thought it was.
It didn't seem to be affiliated.
Anyway. And also the visualizations in the back half get very elaborate, but they're not the visualizations we do, so tend not to. And then you have, sorry. So that was, you've got the man. It's very hard. This is still not right, but to get, I have electronically a visualization of the whole mantra that we had with Chodron Rinpoche, but it's very hard to actually have it as one rotating circle.
So you're saying this one's not correct?
Well, it's a spiral.
Oh, okay.
I mean, what they've done is try and fit it onto the page. And so that's the thing. It's hard to get a visualization that's correct. I do have one electronically, but as I say, it's very hard to.
What's interesting in that particular book is when the light is going through.
Yeah, I'll get to that.
Oh, sorry,
So this is the first one, the downward. So you have Vajrasattva, the light coming through the crown, and then that's simple, so we don't need to go through that. And then we visualize things coming out of the body, like in the nature of sump oil or dirty drain pipe, snakes, scorpions, and so forth. And Chodron Rinpoche says that these are beings. I mean, we might think how gross, beings coming out of my body, that we have karmic connection with. So that's how he explains that. But we're talking about personification, if you like, or symbolism of our negative karma. And then Yama, the Lord of Death, opens up a gaping hole in the ground. Now, this isn't in our sadhana, but I got introduced this early on. I like the idea, and I always incorporate it. He opens up a gaping hole, and he receives all our rubbish, if you like, and is totally satiated, seals up the earth with a double vajra. So you can just think gone. So that's the downward one, or as Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, you can do it on the toilet, which I think is great, because you can just flush it all away. And then this one, you might be referring to, this is the upward, filling up the body.
I was referring to the one where the ground opens up.
Okay. And then this one with the upward, the whole, it's got the body looking like a glass vessel, and you're filling it up. That's going up through the top. And
that's the negativity sort of
yes,
floating to the top
and coming out through the upper orifices. They also have, that's not bad, it's the short mantra. And I have to on Vajrasattva Hum, But for a retreat, for the accumulation of the mantra, we have to do the long. So that's a given. And there's one for the, yeah. So the instantaneous, where it's just like a light, instantaneous. So Lama Yeshe says this is the most powerful visualization, where the light instantaneously hits the crown and your whole, everything's purified when it hits. And he says this is the most powerful because nothing's going out of your body. But it's also, he talks about working with the subtle psychic energies in the body. He also mentioned, this is in Becoming Vajrasattva, he mentions that it's a white light with a pink tinge. And that it just sort of, I don't know, softens it a bit, I guess. And so, yeah, it's very, I find it very wonderful to read, to use words as a support in terms of, particularly reading Lama Yeshe, I find really, really helpful the way he expresses. And it just gives you a different nuance and a different perspective. And so, possibly on. Have you seen this before? Yeah. Have you seen it before?
No.
Yeah, it's
I keep
beautiful
meaning-
images.
I keep meaning to donate my copies at the library. but
Yeah, that'd be good.
I'll
But as
get-
I say,
I'll get around to it.
some of the symbolism, and particularly towards the end of the book, are not
Not helpful,
not helpful for us in
Yeah.
terms of our practice.
because in effect, what we're working is we're sticking to something that doesn't get too carried away with some of the parts.
Yeah, I think just those initial images are very inspiring. They're very clean, clear. Yeah.
So when you mentioned just going back to the getting a sense of the mantra.
Yeah. Oh, we haven't got to the mantra yet.
Oh, sorry.
We're up to the mantra now.
Oh, I keep jumping ahead.
You do keep jumping. So now we're talking about the mantra.
Sorry.
So, yes, this is, I guess, the main reason people do these Nyondro is an accumulation of the mantra, 110 being 111,000, because you do your plus 10%. And so generally, you know, it's useful at the beginning to just time yourself how long it takes to do, say, let's say 10 buckets, 20 or whatever, and use that as a guideline for, well, that means if I devote an hour to just the recitation of the mantra within the context of the sadhana, has to be, then I've got an idea of how many I'll accumulate in that session. And so that we can work out a plan of action for how many we need to accumulate. But when you're doing in a retreat setting, you get faster. You don't think you can get faster, but you do. You get faster, and then you get faster. And it's really interesting, particularly like when you're in complete silence, it's like a lot of the distractions of the mind outwards fall away. And so you realize, oh, I could be so much more efficient without all this. And so that's really helpful. So coming back to when I've led the retreat at Chen Resik, so doing as a group practice, when I started out leading, I would be, can't remember if I asked how they generally did it, but I remember everyone wanting to recite it loudly out loud together. And that has a certain function as a beginner practice to do that, to get the energy going, but then, and for people to familiarize with it. But then actually you want to go more soft so that you're verbalizing it. There's got to be resonance throughout the body so that there's some vocalization. And as I say, to your collar, you know, so that the person next to you can't hear you reciting. And so, you know, this helps us go deeper into concentration. But to remember it's not without sound. So there is sound, there is vibration, and that has an impact on the body itself, the sound of the mantra as well. So, yeah.
Some causes of where it comes from, like pointing out the way that the Tibetans modify it, so they have a slightly different way of saying it.
They say benza where we say vajra, and this is
Is that anything to get hung up on or not?
no. The reason for that is that when written out in Tibetan script, when vajra, as in Vajrasattva, is written out in Tibetan script, it looks like benza in Tibetan. So that's why, because it doesn't sound at all like it, right? So the only time to get hung up about it is when you very first ever get a transmission of a mantra from a Tibetan Lama, and if they say benza, well, that's the transmission that you got. But if I'm doing in a group practice and everyone's going on Vajrasattva or Rupasattva, then I'm going to do that. So we want to make sure, so it's good starting slowly to make sure that we're reciting that correctly. And whenever anybody, 100-syllable mantra, so whenever anybody first encounters this, they think, oh gosh, I'll never get that. Well, of course, it doesn't take too long, So before 1 week, I mean, maybe you're all familiar enough with the mantra already, but there's nothing like taking a mantra for a walk. You go out and walking and reciting a mantra. You get to know it very quickly. So yeah, okay. But there is a thing of reciting it clearly, but not leaving a gap. So not Vajrasattva. It might be when you're learning it. Not what was that? Not running it together on Vajrasattva. And then you get your own rhythm going when you're doing a lot of them. Okay. And then as you get familiarity, then you're able to at least start to integrate the recitation of the mantra with the visualization of the deity. Like a lot of people, when they first start out, I can't visualize and recite at the same time. So it's just like set the visualization and then focus on the mantra. Because you've got this visualization, then you've got the mantra recitation, then you've got upwards and downwards and everything else going on as well. So there's a lot going on. And so, but once you know the mantra, you don't have to focus on it so much, and you can focus more on the visualization. So the number of repetitions, so tracking progress. Yes.
Tracking progress. That, sometimes you have people click, click, click.
Yeah, yeah.
Click.
Oh, with a clicker.
Oh, not with the clicker, but with the mala.
With the mala. I know. I was.
It would be nice to just do it really quietly.
Yeah, I remember. Anyway, this one time being disturbed by that, the person behind was. But it was me who was distracted, not them. They were happily going along and just earbuds. It's true. Yeah, a lot. We can look for any number of things to distract us, get annoyed with, and we do. Yeah. Okay. So we can, it's like if we get too hung up on it, we have this spiritual stress, which is lung, which is quite serious if one gets lung, because it's a mental disturbance that usually when people have it, they don't realize they have it. And so basically lung is like air or breath, so it's an imbalance of the wind element in the body. And that, like particularly when one does a longer retreat like that, there's a lot of lung happens that, there's a lot of imbalances arise. They can manifest in physical illness, they can manifest in disturbances of mind, you forget the mantra, you forget the practice, you don't know what you're doing, or you're just stuck in your own proverbial, just, feeling like you're in the quagmire. All those things happen. Right? And no matter how long a retreat is, it would seem that about a third of the way through is when we get into that stuck spots. So at the end of the time, and before you get to the end as well. So, this too will pass. Everything's impermanent. And as part of the practice of purifying is dredging, in a way, our psyche. We're not dredging it in a way that when you go and see a psychologist, you're doing the practice. But we have to be careful to do the practice with patience. This is one of the perfections of patience, is patience with our own practice. Particularly, like I've observed people when you're in the sort of last few weeks of a retreat, and they're like, "Oh, I've got so many to do, I'm never going to get there." And really push and put extra sessions in. Extra sessions are okay if it's relaxed, but if it's not relaxed, so we need to relax with the practice. Otherwise, we won't be able to finish. As it says, we can experience disturbances to our nervous system, heart palpitations, locked jaw, tension, headaches, sharp pains at the heart center, very, very critical, those sorts of things. So that's when we need to ease off or take a break. So having kindness, compassion, patience, being gentle with ourselves and really letting go. So not clinging to, there's nothing magic about 100,000. It's mere familiarity, as we've talked before, and a certain amount of time. So we have, we've got this practice that's referred to here. And then here is a guideline to the practice, which is what we have in our books anyway. Okay. What else do I want to say? Yes. They have, this has, to answer to your question, it has everything from how to start. It's got a lot of motivations. And I should also mention the teachings from the Vajrasattva retreat, which was Lama Zopa Rinpoche leading the Vajrasattva retreat at Vajrapani in 1999, 3-month Vajrasattva.
It's got 3 big.
Yeah, that. You can also get it electronically. And Becoming Vajrasattva, which was previously called the Tantric Practice of Purification. So sometimes, like at Chen Rezi,
It's exactly the same book anyway.
It's exactly the same book. It's just
different.
Different.
Those in the first one.
Yeah, different labels. So they're all excellent. Okay. All right. So here at the end of the recitation visualization, we're asked to imagine Vajrasattva absorbing into ourselves and becoming inseparable. So this is on page 205, where you have the absorption. It says Guru Vajrasattva, after you've done the 4 opponent powers, Guru Vajrasattva is extremely pleased with your pledge. Vajrasattva, father and mother, melt into light and dissolve into you. So you can actually take a lot of time with that dissolution, in terms of, generally it's wisdom mother dissolving into the body of Vajrasattva, who then dissolves from the bottom up and into the dissolving into the orb of light, which is already above the crown of your head, and that dissolves into you, and your body, speech and mind becomes inseparably one with Guru Vajrasattva's holy body, holy speech and holy. So then we hold ourselves in that merging, if you like, of Vajrasattva and the souls, with this idea of being viewed as our body, speech and mind being completely pure, inseparable from Vajrasattva. So I just So, and then we dissolve that into emptiness. And so here in this reflection, to think about what the purpose for that, because it's quite a, can be quite a very powerful meditation. It's good to reflect on the purpose of this concluding meditation on oneness. You know, sort of what kind of reaction when we do the practice do we have to that? Can we accept it? Can we fully embrace it? And what kind of effects we derive. So if you've engaged in the practice, these are engaging in the practice. It's things to reflect on. You know, you sort of like, oh, that's the moment I look forward to just dissolve everything into light, into emptiness. And then, of course, if we have Vajrasattva empowerment, when we're merging body, speech, and mind, we can arise in the aspect of the Vajrasattva and really think, this is who I truly am, this is me. So any questions about that? That can be articulated. Or anything, questions about doing the practice? I have to say, you know, and then there's some recommended reading. We mentioned Becoming Vajrasattva, Teachings from the Vajrasattva Retreat, the short practice, which is in the silver book, but also, you know, we've got that freebie thing, the little pocket ones, which are also available online, and then guidance through the practice that you can listen to at PMT. And Venerable Thubten was one of the Exploring Buddhism teachers from the States when it was first being rolled out there. So she's recorded a lot of things on YouTube. She was at Chenrezig Institute for a long time. She is from the US, and she was one of those people who rocked up to Chenrezig as a volunteer and ended up ordained, and rest is history, and then ended up a teacher and then ended up.
Sorry, you were saying they're on YouTube by Venerable Thubten.
Yeah, there's a link there.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'll just mention that, like when we had 2019, the 3-month Vajrasattva retreat, it was only the second time it's been done in Australia. There was the first time was Lama Yeshe in 1974, around that time. And when we started our retreat, because it was Losar, we had the elders who had been involved in that retreat, the seniors, come and tell us stories about the first Vajrasattva retreat, and included Gary Folk saying, well, I didn't do the retreat, but Lama Yeshe said, see that chicken coop, that's the sale, go and get it and bring it back, and that's going to be our gompa for the Vajrasattva retreat. And then his wife, Chrissy, did do the retreat, and she said, we had no floor, like it was just the mud or dirt floor. And Gary said, yeah, when Lama Yeshe started the retreat that first evening, and he was busy putting in the louvers into the little gompa, and everything sounded very makeshift, which makes you appreciate that when you're going through hardship and you're blaming everything outside of yourself and realize, actually, we've got it pretty good. We had meals delivered to us up in our abode and so forth. So yeah, very, very good. Anyway, I just mentioned that, I mean, I have been asked, last year I was asked to do and lead in a 3-month Vajrasattva retreat, but I don't know if and when that's going to manifest anytime soon. Because as we found with that retreat, it was only a handful of people who did the retreat, because as you said, you know, having that time, not everyone has that time, even they want to do. Like one person who'd come back from Kopan, having done Kopan, having got the Vajrasattva and really keen to do the retreat, at least do a month. She thought, oh, I can get a month extra off work. Didn't happen. The month didn't happen. So it's difficult. It's difficult for people. And it has to be done residentially. So it's been, yeah.
The Tusha to run big 3 months.
Yes,
The,
actually, some people from here went over there.
the
A lot of Australians go there. When it was on last year, I was there at the beginning, just as it was starting, and the monk who was leading it said 12 of, oh, not 12, the 12 altogether. But anyway, the majority were Australians, and he says, "Why aren't you running this in Australia?" Because the majority of people going there to do it were Australians.
being on the pension and being out of the country for 3 months is no go.
Oh, really?
Well, that's a good thing to
start
know.
Taking away the pension.
When do they take it away? After how long?
I've forgotten how many days, but 3 months is too long.
Mm.
But what you were saying about 1 month, I know a couple of people at Tusha, so I think I might start emailing them about the.
Well, I don't know if they do it one
No,
month,
I'll ask them.
but we can look at doing here in Australia at least.
I think the problem in Australia is it's expensive, I guess, for residential and the
It
food
can be,
and all
yeah.
of that. Whereas in India,
It's a lot cheaper.
probably you'll save, even if you don't get your pension,
Yeah.
you'll save your costs doing it.
Oh, well, that's the great thing about being in Dharamsala.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It can be cheaper.
I mean,
Copan
you
as
can
well when
get-
they do it.
move on
Copan.
from that.
Yeah, but they've done in New Zealand, not recently. They had one in New Zealand. It was quite a while ago.
I just got a question about
Please.
The empowerment,
Yeah.
Haruka empowerment. So if you are going to do the 3-month retreat, do you need?
You don't need Haruka. You need a Vajrasattva empowerment. So at the beginning of when we were planning this 3-month retreat, we requested Geshe Zopa to give the empowerment, and he said, "Give me a few years." So it's a few years later now. Because I think Geshe Zopa is starting these Nyondro on Saturday, and he's indicated that, so it may happen, I don't know when he's doing Vajrasattva, maybe it will happen then. But he didn't say completely 100% no. He said, give me a few years, because he had to complete some practices himself. Yeah.
So the empowerment for Vajrasattva is not as complex or as elaborate as some others.
Well, it's a Kriya Tantra, so it's not as complex as highest yoga tantra, for example.
So I know that Geshe Sonam gave the J name
Right.
for Vajrasattva, but I don't know if that's different.
Wow, that's
Jainang's like it is a permit. It's Jainang's literally permission to practice. Yeah. So the Wong is the actual full empowerment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the Jainang's permission to practice. So, as I said, I mean, everyone can do Vajrasattva visualized above the crown of the head, which is what the visualization mainly is anyway.
Mhm.
So yeah.
So if one's got HYT in something other than Vajrasattva, you still need the separate
Haruka.
empowerment for the Vajrasattva.
Haruka.
Yeah.
Or the Kriya. Are you talking behind
Yeah.
No, you still need that. Yeah, you'd still do the Kriya Vajrasattva.
Yeah.
And then you can come on. So go for it. Go for it. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to be having a break for a month while I go off and do other things, lead a retreat.
What
And
retreat
Sorry,
do you need?
Lamrim.
Where was it?
Daytongling. Yeah. So then I'm back. I think we don't start again till November, beginning of November. I'm out for October.
We'll see you tomorrow, maybe. Are you going to leave?
Oh yes, tomorrow. No,
That's right.
tomorrow. Yeah, that the Nyondro practice kicking off with Geshe Zopa at Langri Tangpa. So we're going to watch here
Yeah, someone
At
set up the TV.
5 o'clock. I think it's 5 till 6:30.
Yeah, because it's 7 till. it's
8, 7
7.
till 8:30,
Yeah,
which
but
is our
it's 2 hours.
5, which is great. 5 till. You're going to come? Yeah.
Yeah,
It'd be wonderful. Yeah.
Oh, so we can see it here.
Yes.
We'll set it up here so we can do it together.
We can watch together and do it together. So we can't do the whole weekend. What we can do, because we've got other things on here, but we can do tomorrow evening session and then Saturday morning from 8 till 10 or something. Is it?
Yeah, I think
8
it's
till
8
10.
till 10, yeah.
Yeah. But then they'll have a lunch break. Meantime, we've got budget supper at 1 and it rolls on from there into the night. Lots going on. Yeah. So yes, tomorrow night. Thanks for reminding us to come along. We'll be here. Yeah. Okay, so let's dedicate. We all have the opportunity to engage in these mantra practices. Page 8. Evadihino Doja Lama Sangye Nrudyone Trowa Chikyang Mahalokan Deyi Sahala Ngopa Shu Janchu Tsencho Rinpoche Maike Panam Gekuchi Yepa Nyampa Mepa Yongo Nego Nupewa Shu. A long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Chik Ten Kam De Pende Mahalupa Yang Le Jue Sampe Ishino Kadri Zorbe Eti Yacho Pushe Tenjin Tushe The prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious Vanshpravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teaching. Through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request, while striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway for which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the action of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. And a long life prayer to Tenzin Osul Rinpoche. Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition, essence of Buddhist teachings. Foremost and holy Lama, to you, for us supreme, we make this prayer of supplication. Lama, please, please live long. Thank you very much. I look forward to tomorrow evening.
Said when we were at the airport, just milling around, having a chat. He gave a little teaching to myself and